Rembrandt, of course. All right, now, today, take a look. We are going to talk about an artist named Vermeer, and I have a lot to tell you about him, so let's get started.
Look at this amazing painting of this beautiful woman pouring the milk. This is the creation known as The Milkmaid by Johannes Vermeer. Oh wait, that's a picture of Miss Rose dressed up like the milkmaid. Oh, I better show you the real one. Here it is. Da 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 da. This is the actual masterpiece right here. And I would like you to notice so many amazing things about it. First of all, as I said earlier, Johannes Vermeer painted in a very similar style as Rembrandt, where he really focused on beautiful lighting and shadows. Take a look at the light source in this painting. You'll notice over here that the window is in the upper left corner. And so all these beautiful highlights on her forehead and on her hand, even shining on the milk here, on the bread, on the blue cloth, all sorts of highlights. The sunlight is just dancing off of the objects in this painting. And then, of course, on the other side of that, on the right side, you'll notice all the shadows. The beautiful dark shadow on the right side of her face and the curving shadow on the side of her shoulder down into the folds of her skirt towards the bottom of the painting. Ah, such a beautiful painting. I wish I could go see this in person. So when I recreated this in a photograph, my daughter helped me, she took the picture. I made sure that I stood by a window. So this was in my living room, and you can't really see it in this picture, but there's a window right over here on the left side. And so it's shining the light onto the cloth on my head and onto my hand. You can see the shining highlights on the silver teapot there, and you can see all the different colors of blue in the folds of the tablecloth and my skirt. So I just wanted to show you that fun little recreation. Now I'm going to share a book with you a little bit about Johannes Vermeer, so you can see some of his other masterpieces as well. Johannes Vermeer was born in Delft, Holland in 1632. Hardly anything is known about his life. He never even made a portrait of himself. The famous Vermeer painting above shows an artist in his studio. The artist might be Johannes, but no one knows for sure. Now that's different from the other Dutch painter we've been studying, Rembrandt. As you know, he created lots of self-portraits. Even though the story of Johannes Vermeer's life is a mystery, his paintings are known and loved by people all over the world. Vermeer chose familiar, everyday subjects. His paintings usually show one or two people in a room with light coming in a window. Beautiful. What makes these paintings so wonderful is the awesome quiet and stillness Vermeer was able to create. This one is called Young Woman with a Water Jug. When you look at a Vermeer painting, it feels almost like you're sharing a real moment with someone who lived in Holland more than 300 years ago. In 1632, when Johannes Vermeer was born, Holland was becoming one of the wealthiest and most powerful countries in Europe. The Dutch had just won an 80-year-long war against their Spanish rulers. People in Holland couldn't wait to show the world how proud they were of their new freedom. The Dutch began to explore undiscovered parts of the world and set up colonies there. They made lots of money trading cloth and other goods, including a type of pottery called Delft porcelain.
These beautiful dishes, bowls, and vases, which are still popular today, were made right in Vermeer's own city. The Dutch were also known at the time for their discoveries in science, medicine, and astronomy. Holland was also an exciting center for art during this time. Some of the greatest artists of all time lived and worked in Holland in the 1600s. Most well known among them, the man we've been studying, Rembrandt, who painted this lovely portrait of a family group. So some of the other painters in Holland at that time, Frans Hals, Rembrandt van Rijn, Pieter de Hooch, Jan Steen, Gerard ter Broch, and many others. They created so many beautiful paintings in Holland that this time in European history became known as the Golden Age of Art. While Johannes Vermeer was growing up, his father was very busy. Mr. Vermeer owned and ran an inn like the one shown in this painting. He also sold silk cloth and was an art dealer. It wasn't unusual back then for hotels and inns to display and sell artwork. During the Golden Age of Art, artists worked differently than they had in the past. When the Spanish king ruled, Dutch artists were hired to make artwork for the walls of royal palaces and churches. The only acceptable things to paint were portraits of wealthy royal people and scenes of historical battles, legends, or stories from the Bible. But without the kings and religious leaders telling artists what to paint, the Dutch artists began to make paintings of whatever they and their customers liked. Most people in Holland had enough money now to afford paintings for their homes. The most popular pictures were scenes from everyday life. These pictures were called genre paintings. Soon it seemed as if everyone in Holland had these types of paintings hanging in their homes and workplaces. When Johannes Vermeer started out, he did his paintings in the older style, using ideas from Bible stories and mythology. But before long, he shifted to doing scenes from everyday life. A Maid Asleep is one of Vermeer's first genre paintings. It includes some of the things Johannes would put in his paintings throughout his life, such as a decorative tablecloth with an interesting still life upon it. The painting also has that special feeling of quiet stillness in many of Vermeer's paintings. In 1652, when Johannes Vermeer was 20 years old, his father died. Johannes took over his father's art business and ran the inn. He became even busier when he married Catharina Bones a year later. Johannes and Catharina ended up having 15 children. Johannes Vermeer made only about 40 paintings during his whole life. It's amazing he had enough time to do any paintings at all. Oh, it looks busy. Even though Johannes Vermeer became one of Delft's most popular artists, he couldn't make a living just by painting pictures. Hardly any artist could at that time. Suddenly, there were so many artists around that paintings were being sold all over for very little money. Some artists even sold their works from booths in the marketplace. Most of Johannes Vermeer's paintings are of people. He did paint two beautiful city scenes, though. One is called Street in Delft, and the other is View of Delft. It's one of Vermeer's greatest works. You can feel Johannes Vermeer's love for his city. The unusual lighting gives a feeling of a moody day just after a storm has passed through. The houses and buildings seem to sparkle in the sun as it shines down on them from behind a cloud. In this special painting, Johannes Vermeer lets you know exactly what it was like to be standing outside his city in the late 1660s. The sparkly feeling Vermeer created in the View of Delft also shows up in some of his other paintings. The little glowing and reflective dots and globs he used reminds many people of light reflections that can be seen in photographs. In this painting, The Girl with a Red Hat, you can see sparkly dots on the girl's nose, lips, earring, and polished chair decoration. Cameras weren't invented until almost 200 years later, but people in Holland, including Vermeer, were very interested in seeing how things looked through a glass lens. The best telescopes and microscopes in Europe were being made in Holland during the 1600s. In one of Vermeer's most famous paintings, The Lace Maker, the objects in the front of the girl are a bit out of focus. This is how a camera lens can make things look. Johannes knew this would cause your eye to focus right away on the busy girl. The little lace maker is concentrating so hard on what she's doing that it's easy to feel like you're working right along with her. It's fun to look for realistic details Johannes Vermeer included in his paintings. Sometimes you'll notice a nail hole in the wall or the reflection of a person in the window. There's the nail hole, and there's a reflection. Vermeer worked very carefully to capture his people in a moment of deep thought. His beautiful lighting, his use of perspective, and simple compositions make his paintings as close to perfect as possible. The end.